play? Come to our yard. New Thought Media Network spotlights you. Saturdays at 6 p.m. Mountain Time, Spirit Says Sing. Our stage is open for musicians, singers and speakers, visual artists. Shine with us live. It's easy, just click the link in the comments and be ready to soar. Spirit Says Sing. Saturdays at 6, right here on New Thought Media Network.
New Thought Media Network. We are a global broadcast network of positive music, media, and entertainment, inspiring humanity's evolution along the journey of enlightenment and creating a world of love, peace, empowerment, and prosperity for all. New Thought Media Network. Positively inspiring.
Live from a secure concrete bunker somewhere in Ohio, New Thought Media Network presents Pastor Michael Mangus with Friday's Fireside Chat, spiritual conversation for today. Here he is from the secret radio room, surrounded by thousands of watts, Pastor Michael Mangus.
Well, good evening to everyone across the United States and around the world. It's time for another fun-filled, thrill-packed, and always exciting edition of the Fireside Chat here on the New Thought Media Network. I am Pastor Michael Mangus, broadcasting from the secret radio room somewhere here in Akron, Ohio. Diego knows where it is, but not Reverend Robert. We don't tell him. Okay. We have a wonderful show for you this evening. Again, feel free to interact. We do have chat below, so please feel free to go ahead and to put in your comments there. If you are shy and you don't want to put your comments, that's okay. Please feel free to contact me at pastormichaelmangus@gmail.com. pastormichaelmangus@gmail.com. So the purpose of our Fireside Chat here on Friday evenings is to talk about contemporary issues from a New Thought perspective. And as I keep saying, I want us to all have a new thought about what is going on all around us, not only here in the United States, but also around the world. From the legal department here at New Thought Radio and Media Network, which is located, their offices are located down the hallway, past programming on the left, but before engineering. I always get an email saying, please read the disclaimer. Okay. So from the legal department of the New Thought Media Network, the views and opinions expressed by the host and his guest are their own. They do not represent the views and opinions necessarily of the New Thought Media Network, Centers for Spiritual Living, Reverend Robert, his beautiful wife Laura, or Winston, my producer Diego's pet pig. Okay? As they say in the 12-step recovery program, take what you like and leave the rest. And now back to our regular programming. We have a great guest this evening, longtime friend since high school. He's also the National Outreach Director of Move to Amend. That is Mr. Greg Coleridge. He will be teaching us a thing or two about how to bring about societal change for the better. So I'm really happy to have Greg on this evening. Again, he'll be coming on probably around 8:30. In the news, well, COVID-19 is still there. The numbers from the Center for Disease Control are total number of cases, 26,398,337. That's up 121,212 cases since yesterday. Cases in the last 7 days, 941,667. And again, that is a decrease of 300,000. So that's good. And total number of deaths so far, including my mother, 449,020. And that is including the 3,756 new deaths since yesterday. So again, my purpose in sharing the numbers is not for us to get all upset about them. I just want us all to be aware of what's going on around us. Now, the good news here is that the daily death totals are under 4,000 a day, with the cases of infection slowing up and the hospitalizations going down. And so far, that is with 35,203,710 doses of vaccine that have been administered. Almost 28 million have received at least one dose, with 7 million receiving two. What you need to know from CNN, the coronavirus variant, first identified in the UK, could become dominant in the US as the country races to administer vaccines, since Dr. Anthony Fauci. The U.S. Senate passed a key procedural step that sets up the ability for the Democrats to fast-track President Biden's COVID-19 relief package. A model forecasts more than 630,000 U.S. COVID deaths by June 1st. And also, the FDA will meet on February 26th to discuss the Johnson & Johnson request for the emergency use authorization of its COVID-19 vaccine. And the good part about this is that with the Johnson & Johnson vaccine, there's only one shot instead of two. Also, some news I thought that we would talk about this evening. U.S. manufacturers supports Biden's use of the Defense Production Act to fight COVID-19. If you're going to use the military to use it for this. The National Association of Manufacturers said on Friday that the Biden administration is demonstrating that they have listened to manufacturers and are seeking a true partnership in defeating COVID-19. President Biden signed an executive order 2 weeks ago directing U.S. agencies to use the Defense Production Act in the fight against coronavirus. On Friday, the administration announced that it plans to use the law in three key areas: equipment and supplies for Pfizer vaccine protection, and I think they also mean Moderna also, an increase in at-home or point-of-care testing. That means that you'll be able to get an at-home test, and personal protection equipment, particularly gloves for frontline workers. In a statement from the National Association of Manufacturers, their CEO, Jay Timmons, said this: manufacturers stand ready to continue doing our part. Manufacturers have consistently advised the federal government that the Defense Production Act is the most productive if deployed in a way that fosters partnership and provides incentives rather than imposing demands or punitive measures, Timmons added. I also saw this week that the Ford Motor Company is coming up with more of a form-fitting mask for the face. So good for them. Also, the White House expects to announce about 1,000 troops will be deployed to assist with vaccinations. The Biden administration, this is also from CNN, the Biden administration is expected to announce on Friday it is sending 1,000 U.S. troops to help around the country with COVID-19 vaccinations. The Defense Department and FEMA have also discussed sending up to 10,000 troops. Each team will have personnel who can administer vaccines as well as support troops. The goal is for the military to eventually ramp up to administering approximately 450,000 vaccines a day. There are over 20,000 National Guardsmen and women deployed providing COVID support, including at over 216 vaccine sites in 36 states and territories, said Max Rose, who is the COVID senior advisor to the Secretary of Defense. The Pentagon has also kept hundreds of personnel on notice to be prepared to deploy, mainly to help overwhelmed healthcare facilities and hospitals around the country. So the distribution of the vaccine is ramping up here. The number as far as infections are going down, which is wonderful. However, as they say, patience is a virtue. Your best bet, if you are wanting to get the vaccine, is to talk to your local health department. In Ohio, those 65 and older can sign up for an appointment, and many pharmacy chains like CVS and also Walgreens will also be administering doses of the vaccine. So from last week's show, we received a comment from Judy. I hope she's watching this evening. Hi, Judy. Responding to my comment that we will all get through this. She asked the question, do I have any suggestions? Well, of course, Judy, I've been giving suggestions since March. But since you're new, that's okay. I know that we get a lot of new viewers each and every week. The whole trick of this, if there is one, is not that we just get through this, but we get through this better. That we're able to thrive through this time rather than be burned by it. So here are some suggestions here. First of all, for God's sake, follow the science here. Wear a mask. Watch your distance. Wash your hands and crack open a window and insist that others outside of your bubble wear a mask in your home. All these suggestions that were given last March still apply here. And understand that even when you get the vaccine, there's still a wait time of 4 to 6 weeks here until it kicks in to your immune system. And for goodness sakes, please study the science before deciding not to take the vaccine. As for me and my house here, we will get vaccinated because it is safe and highly effective. Now, Judy, how we're all going to get through this mainly relies upon our thinking. For example, instead of thinking that you're trapped inside, think that you're going to keep yourself and others safe inside. Again, that little mindset, that little trick will really save you hours of grief. Also, find ways to take care of yourself. Many individuals have used this time to deepen their spiritual practice. There are a ton of videos on YouTube, on meditation, on relaxation. Many of them also have a meditation about getting through this time of COVID-19. Here's another mental trick here. Instead of focusing on what you can't do, focus on what you can do. And there's a lot of things that you can do, like take a walk outside, work on household projects, which many are doing, and driving up the price of lumber. Remember to socially distance does not mean to socially isolate. So again, you have the phone, you have Zoom. Keep in contact with other people in your family. Also, if you do have elderly neighbors, again, go knock on their door, stand 6 feet away, and see how they are doing. But Judy, know this, there is light at the end of the tunnel here. And for a while, we're going to still have to wear a mask. We're still going to have to social distance. It's going to take a while before things get back to normal. And we don't know what that normal is yet. I know some things I'd like to do, which is go back to church. That would be nice. Maybe go see a concert or a ball game. But we're heading in that direction now. Another tip here is to avoid social gatherings outside your bubble. And I know this is difficult. If you're getting together, have everyone wear a mask, and for goodness sakes, crack open a window or do it outside. Dr. Fauci is recommending that we all watch the Super Bowl at home this year. So go get plenty of snacks and watch the game at home without the rest of your family that's outside of your bubble. Also, know even with the vaccine here, it's going to take a while to get herd immunity. That's 70 to 80% of the people who, again, have the antibodies in them because of the vaccine. So know with me and pray with me here the outcome, which is that we're able to go back and do some of the things that we did before. And finally, please take this seriously. We will all get through this if we guide our thinking towards the positive. I'm not saying be Pollyanna about this. I'm just saying that a lot of this and a lot of us getting through this will depend upon, again, our mental attitude. All right. So Judy also asked another question about the article last week that talked about the Pope Francis formally allowing women to participate more in the Mass. The Pope also mentioned that he is not considering to ordain women to priesthood, but will consider having them as permanent deacons. So some think that what the Pope is doing is a slippery slope in allowing women more participation. And as I mentioned last week, Christianity would not be here if it weren't for the women supporting the disciples and other church workers back in the first century. And I hope that clears that up, Judy. And again, if you have any more questions, again, go ahead and put them in the chat or contact me at pastormichaelmangus@gmail.com. Well, if you're wondering what you have stumbled onto here on Facebook, hi, good evening, welcome. This is the Friday evening Fireside Chat here on the New Thought Media Network. I am Pastor Michael Mangus, and we're going through some of the news of the day. And at the bottom of the hour, we will have a very special guest, and my friend from movetoamend.org, that's Mr. Greg Coleridge. In other news from National Public Radio, and I won't go through too much of this, but I did shorten it a little bit. The headline is Fatal Police Shootings of Unarmed Black People Reveal Troubling Patterns. Cheryl Thompson's article is wonderful, so you can go on the NPR website, npr.org, to read the full article. The deadly shootings of unarmed black men and women by police officers in the U.S. have increasingly garnered worldwide attention over the past few years. The 2014 killing of Michael Brown in Ferguson sparked a week of protests that catapulted the Black Lives Matter movement into the national spotlight. Since then, tens of thousands of people across the country have taken to the streets to protest police brutality of blacks, mostly by white officers. Many officers will go their entire careers without shooting and sometimes without pulling their gun at all, says Peter Schraff, who's a criminologist and professor in the School of Public Health at Louisiana State University, and co-author of The Badge and the Bullet, The Police Use of Deadly Force. But he says it is rare. Not every law enforcement agency releases detailed information about police shootings. The LA County Sheriff's Department and the Kansas City, Missouri Police Department, for example, refuse to release specifics such as officers' names or their race, citing open investigations. Still, NPR reviews thousands of pages of job applications, personnel records, use of force reports, citizen complaints, and so on. We've also interviewed use of force experts, criminologists, police, lawyers, prosecutors, and relatives of victims. Among NPR's other findings, at least 6 other officers have had trouble passed before being hired onto the police department, including drug use and domestic violence. Several officers were convicted of crimes while on the force, such as battery and resisting and obstructing, but they still kept their jobs. In one instance, officials in a tiny Louisiana parish repeatedly fired and then rehired a deputy who got into trouble with the law 3 times over 30 years. More than 24 officers have racked up citizen complaints or use of force incidents. A Fort Lauderdale, Florida police officer had 82 reviews over use of force incidents, but was never found in violation. A Vineland, New Jersey officer had more than 36 use of force incidents over a 5-year period. And several officers have violated their department's policies and have been cited for ethics violation, including a Hollywood, Florida officer accused of trying to steer business to his company, and also an Arizona state trooper accused of misusing state property. There needs to be something done. The way that we have our police departments set up needs reformed. And also from NPR, it says most U.S. mayors do not support reallocating police resources, surveys find. And again, I'll just read a couple of paragraphs from this. The vast majority of mayors in American cities do not support sweeping changes to the fundings of their police departments. And most say that last year's racial justice protests were a force for good in their cities, according to a new survey of more than 100 mayors across the U.S. 80% of the mayors who responded to the survey said that they believed their police budgets last year were about right. And most mayors said that they did not support reallocating money or some of their police department resources and responsibilities. So, like I said last week, We need to keep the pressure on our local officials to demand change. Not only do we need to, again, pray for change, but we also need to act also. In Akron, Youngstown, Ohio, of all places, and also Boston, they're all taking a very hard look at how we do policing in this country. We must always keep the high watch here by eradicating the thoughts and beliefs of racism in ourselves. So that's where it first starts. It's within us. And then supporting our local police to eradicate the beliefs and policies that are a symptom. All of the killings that we have heard on the news here is just a symptom of what is going on out there. A symptom of the systematic racism that is there. And you can go ahead and say, well, everybody's equal. No, they're not. What this has brought up, especially in this past year of the pandemic, is that we have all been forced to watch this in our homes. And we've been given a choice here of being able to speak up and to speak out for our brothers and sisters. So let us all have a world that does work for everyone. And again, if you wonder what you stumbled onto, hi there. This is the Friday evening fireside chat here on the New Thought Media Network. In just a few moments, we will have on my longtime friend from high school. Mr. Greg Coleridge will be on. He is with the Move to Amend committee, and he will be talking more about that and also about how do we really have and how can we promote social change in our society. But first, a few announcements here. Yours truly is parking himself currently at the Summit Center for Spiritual Living in Akron. For more information, please go to summitcsl.org. There you will find all kinds of information about our wonderful Sunday gathering, which is online currently at 10:30 Eastern, 7:30 Pacific time. Yes, people get up that early in the morning on the West Coast. So grab your cup of coffee or tea or espresso or chai or whatever that you have, and please join us. And I really do think that we have one of the best services that I've ever seen in New Thought. The right balance of meditation, the right balance of message, the right balance of music. And this Sunday, we have a very special event. It's our 21st anniversary of our center. And I will be speaking on There is a New Beginning for You, which was the first message that I gave 21 years ago. Of course, I'm going to update it. Our own John Miller will be providing the music, so please go on summitcsl.org for more information on how to join our Zoom call. Our service is also simulcast also on the Summit Spiritual Center of Akron Facebook page. Also, if you go on our Facebook page, the Summit Spiritual Center of Akron, you can see the last thing I did before the end of the year, which was a virtual log burning, which went very well. So as my assistant Hannah and I, we're still trying to figure out StreamYard. We'll have more original programming coming from Summit CSL. I am currently open for individual practitioner sessions, Sunday speaking, and also the performing of ceremonies. If you would like more information about that, please email me at pastormichaelmangus@gmail.com. We have all kinds of programs and announcements. There he goes. Diego just goes ahead and throws it up there, which is good. All kinds of good stuff here on the New Thought Media Network, including Monday Morning Visioning at 7 a.m., Cosmic Prayer live from the UK with Laura Topper. This week, she'll have a special guest in Reverend Edward Viljoen, who is our spiritual leader of Centers for Spiritual Living. So that'll be at 11 a.m. Mountain Time or 1 p.m. Eastern Time here on the New Thought Media Network. Also, Monday, we have the Peace Circle at 4 o'clock. Tuesday, we have the Mystical Writers Hangout, Treasures from the Tao with Reverend Jody at 12 p.m. Mountain Time. We have New Thought Today with Reverend Z and Reverend Robert at 2 p.m. Every day we have morning prayer. Monday through Friday, we have a daily sip of Spirit in Action with Reverend Melissa. That's at 8:30 a.m. Mountain Time. On Wednesdays, we have a midweek pick-me-up with Reverend Robert. That's at 6 p.m. Afterwards, then, they have fellowship at 6:30 on Zoom. Again, more information will be given during the broadcast. Each day, we have evening prayers at 8:15 with the prayer team. Thursdays, we have a Joyzy Girl Wisdom with Reverend Dr. Michelle Wadley at 10 a.m. Mountain Time. Also, Thursdays, The Joys in the Journey at 1 p.m., which is by Reverend Melissa. Ministers Talking Stuff at 7 a.m. with Reverend Robert and also Reverend Z. We have a collective meditation for peace, the Heart of Peace meditation, which is at 9 a.m. Mountain Time. Yours truly with the Fireside Chats here at 6 p.m. Mountain Time here on New Thought Media Network. Camille Conti has a wonderful show at 8 p.m. on Friday evenings on the newthoughtmedia.org website. On Saturdays, a great series. We have a team of practitioners and ministers going through the Science of Mind textbook and giving their commentary on that. That's at 9 a.m. Mountain Time. And also on Saturdays, Feel the Flow rebroadcast at 10:30 a.m. with Terry Paul Choice. And also we have, and it's not listed here on the schedule yet, Diego, but Spirit Says Sing, that's at 6 p.m. 6 p.m. Mountain Time here on the New Thought Media Network. Also want to remind you that Laura and Jason's Cosmic Concerts are tomorrow evening. You can reserve here either on February 6th or the 27th. And again, if you go on our website, newthoughtmedia.org/cosmic concerts with our own Laura Topper. All kinds of activity here. And we're asking for your loving support. I just got a whole list of stuff this week from Reverend Robert to look up. We're looking to upgrade our radio stream. That's going to cost several hundreds of dollars. The money that you give here blesses the whole world. It not only provides a platform for all of us to share with you, but also that your donation makes it possible for us to share this message to some people who will never see the insides of a New Thought Center. So your loving support is greatly appreciated. If you go on our website, ntmedia.org/donate, you'll get a whole lot of information there. And again, we're still offering some premiums, but the best premium is this, is that you're able to bless the world with this message through your donation. All right? All right. Well, thank you so very much. And now, let me introduce our very special guest this evening. Greg Coleridge is the National Outreach Director of Move to Amend. He previously worked for more than 3 decades with the American Friends Service Committee here in Akron, Ohio, where he educated, advocated, and organized on a range of justice, peace, environmental, and democracy issues, including to help coordinate move to amend activities here in the Buckeye State. He's the author of Citizens Over Corporations, a writer of a documentary called Corp or Nation, the story of citizens and corporations in Ohio, and has contributed several articles to an anthology. He currently maintains and distributes via email a weekly Real Democracy History Calendar and Monetary History Calendar. He loves camping, hiking, walking, swimming, especially with his wife, his daughter, and son-in-law, of all who I've met, and almost everything else outdoors. And he forgot to mention that he also plays a mean game of basketball. Here he is, my longtime friend from high school, Greg Coleridge.
Well, hello, Pastor Mike. How are you?
I'm doing good. Thanks for being on the program with us this evening.
Very good of you to have me. Thank you.
Oh, thank you. So tell me about your reactions to January 6th and the insurrection at the Capitol. What was going through your mind, your feelings?
Yeah. Well, like so many of us and you and people who are watching, no doubt, just shocked, surprised, frightened. What happened was dangerous, a threat to representative democracy in trying to overturn an election. It was an assault, certainly on people who were trying to protect the Capitol, police officers, but also potentially an assault on life and limb of many of those who we elect to represent us, of both political parties, all political persuasions, who feared for their safety. And to see it play out the way it did from the start of a rally, and you know that I participated in many rallies in Washington, D.C. and many other places. And, we here in Ohio are not that far away from Washington, D.C., a 6-7 hour bus ride and you're there. And so, we know all those places where people congregate and how it works, right? Of doing rallies and doing symbolic protests and marches and signs, and starting in one place and ending up in another. And, not always completely in word anyway, nonviolent, but certainly in action, nonviolent. And for the most part, where and when we have encountered the police, there is no police department anywhere in the country that is better trained to handle nonviolent, protesters than Washington, because there are people there all the time. But what people were not, people who were police, whether they were in the community, city, or Capitol Police, what they were not prepared for, obviously, was that assault. And I mean, there's all kind of takeaways. We could spend a whole lot of time focus on that. But I think, what's extremely important to recognize, and I think to acknowledge, is that this was not designed. This was not planned. This was not, yes, there was a certain degree of spontaneity, but there was a whole heck of a lot of pre-plan, of deliberate intent to try to disrupt and not acknowledge the constitutional role of Congress to certify an election.
All based upon the whole lie that the elections weren't, that the elections were fixed and everything else. And again, the Trump administration plus also their legal team went through 60 plus legal challenges again, and they proved nothing. So these individuals were trying to stop the steal on the whole idea of a lie.
Well, absolutely. I mean, just sort of backing up a bit on, what was it that triggered this kind of anger and this kind of action? It's exactly what it was. Not just a lie that emanated from the rally that morning, but that was a long time in planning. And those who study psychology, that goes back, many decades, says that the bigger the lie you say, and the more frequently you say it, the greater chance that, particularly if it's coming from a source of perceived authority, then the more likely it is to be believed. But you have to be consistent in telling the lie, in doubling down, in tripling down. And the difference between today than the last, several decades, when such theories of psychology were introduced, is that we now have social media and social media platforms that are able to, to amplify and to, quote unquote, in their own way, to in a perverted way, legitimize by having people who are perceived of as media experts, who are supposed to be telling
the truth
through news, who are perpetuating this and fomenting it. And when you add then the layer on top of that of fear and anger of people who feel like that something is going to be taken away from them, because they feel that they have been wronged for a long time, and that what is going to happen is unfair and is going to treat them badly because of other lies that have been told to them around race and, also nationality and the like. It all adds up. And so, I mean, there's a lot of blame to go around. Certainly Trump and his minions, those in Congress who with a straight face knew full well, Hawley, Cruz, Johnson, Mo Brooks, and others who were both at the rally and then who were inside the Capitol, who were trying to, hold up the election. The media, particularly the, social media of Twitter and Facebook, that for a long time, hey, this stuff sells, right? Extremism is profitable.
Well, we see that on some of the other, we see that on, like, for example, like some of the right-wing, especially right-wing radio, again, Sean Hannity and also Rush Limbaugh and the others. I wanted to talk about, so we saw what did not work. So again, you've been doing this a long time. So what doesn't work and what does work as far as bringing about social change?
Well, I think one thing we have to recognize is that there certainly is cause for protest in this country. This country was born of protest, right? Those people who decided to throw, to dress up as indigenous people and throw tea off the ship in Boston Harbor. The East India Company provided refreshments for that occurrence. Those were people who committed acts of protest and, quite honestly, committed acts of civil disobedience, right? They were destroying property, if you will. But the difference, and there's a long history, obviously, of protest in this country. When it has been most effective, it has been based on, I think, moral principles that people have been wronged from the get-go, that from the beginning, we the people have never been all the people. We the people from the get-go were, for the most part, it's hard for many of us to accept, but white male property owners were, which represented, today we hear, the 1%ers, but back then it was like 5 to 6% were the white male property owner. Everybody else was not a real person, was a 3/5 person. If you're a woman, you're a rib of a man. If you're an indigenous person, you're not even any percentage or fraction. You're considered a beast. And savages, which look at the Declaration of Independence. That's how Native people are referred to in our Declaration of Independence as savages. They're not even human. So, I mean, from the get-go, people who have sought for things like justice and for things like equality and being treated with dignity and respect have had, I think, that moral compass and that moral rightness behind them. But then it's not just the message, it's the actions. The actions they have taken then have been to, what many people have sort of defined, and there are some historians that have looked at how social changes occurred. A guy named Gene Sharp, he's a historian, goes way back to Greece and Rome, and how social change happened, and how governments and authoritarians and emperors were overthrown through nonviolent actions. And basically the system and the route and the prescription is pretty much the same. People are either, focusing on sort of symbolic protest and persuasion, things like rallies and standing and vigiling and the things like that, or they up the ante a bit and do non-cooperation, whether it's political non-cooperation or economic non-cooperation. By economic, those are things like boycotts, what we saw in the South, right, of the bus boycott against the civil wrongs committed against African Americans. But then there's also resistance, where you just sort of gum up the system, where you try to sit and block the trains that are taking weapons overseas or to Central America, or the nuns who resist and go on to nuclear weapon sites and symbolically take a hammer and try to pound on a nuclear weapon. I mean, that's both sort of symbolic. You're not obviously defanging that weapon, but at the same time you are resisting. You are going onto the property and trying to gum up the system. So that has a lot of moral power, of moral strength. And
so you're saying, go ahead.
I was just going to say, and so, you've seen throughout history where people, have used what sources of social power they have. We may not have the system of government that we may feel is oppressive to wage a nonviolent battle for justice, peace, democracy. We may not have the military behind us, but we may have moral authority. We may have certain human resources. We may have skills and knowledge that we bring to the table, or certain natural resources that work for us, or psychological factors. I mean, there's just a whole assortment and range of tools that people have used and that have been successful. Just the one last thing I think it's important.
Okay, go ahead.
A woman by the name of Erica Chenoweth, who I think she teaches University of Denver or something. She was a Gulf War vet, and she's looked at nonviolent social change in more modern times, and has found that particularly in situations, and this is outside the United States, where you have leadership that is, flat out oppressive, where if you protest, the military will come out and start shooting and the like. And they have found in doing research that when one uses as a movement in trying to build a movement, that when you do those things and you are nonviolent, you are twice as successful as if you were violent. And that you need two factors to be successful. One is, obviously you have to have more than 50% of the people who agree with you, whatever that is. And if you're waging violence and hurting people, you're going to obviously alienate a whole large number of people, particularly those in the middle. So you need, obviously, people to be for you. And one of the ways that they are for you is you sacrifice. You are selfless. Sometimes you risk being beaten up or arrested or the like. But the second condition you have to have, other than simply more than 50% of the people behind you, is something like 2.5 to 3.5% of the population who really are willing to sort of go to the mat, who are willing to do more than just, hey, I'm for you, or occasionally I'll, write a letter or make a phone call, but who are sort of really into it, who are willing maybe to risk arrest, in doing nonviolent action or doing something 4 or 5 times a week, that kind of thing. When you put those two things together, it really does make a big difference.
So some of our New Thought audience, and we've had discussion about this, they do not believe that our center should even say anything about social matters, or that religious institutions should just teach the Bible or whatever and go ahead and should not be involved in social issues. So talk about the involvement of the church over the years and how that they have contributed to social movements.
Yeah. Well, again, if you just look at the history of this country, history of many countries, of when there has been progressive, popular justice and peace, justice in all its forms, whether it's social, whether it's economic, whether it's environmental, whether it's political, all of those, a variety of forms of justice. People of faith, people of conscience have been in the forefront or very near the forefront. Students is another constituency, oftentimes working people, sometimes organized working people, those who are involved in unions. I mean, those three constituencies, but maybe the one that has been there from the effort to abolish the institution of slavery. You had just in Ohio, hey, I'm in Ohio. Ohio, if you've never been to the Cincinnati museum down there of the Underground Railroad, somewhere in the order of 700 spots or depots of the Underground Railroad were in Ohio to get from the Ohio River to Lake Erie and to Canada. Because, of course, simply being in the North wasn't good enough because of the Return Servants Clause, Article 1, Section 4. You're still property. You weren't a person if you made it north. But yet you had people of faith, many Friends, Quakers, other historic peace churches, but also Mennonites and Presbyterians and others who risked, to quarter an escaped slave was basically stealing somebody else's property. You could be arrested and tried. And so these people, they risked because they were doers of the word. It wasn't enough simply to think. It wasn't enough to simply hope. It wasn't enough to simply pray. You had to do. You had to act. You had to bring your thoughts. You had to bring your feelings. You had to bring your beliefs to life. And I mean that, you can just go through the women's rights. A lot of the people at Seneca Falls, if you've never been to Seneca Falls, New York, go there. It's worthwhile going. Many of those, again, largely Quakers, but others who were involved in that. A lot of the labor efforts, the early sit-down strikes, and others to lift up the unfairness and the violence of children working, of child labor, were people of faith. So a lot of those New Deal programs and the peace movement, a lot of the efforts to go against the wars from World War I to World War II to Vietnam to Iraq, people of faith, and it continues. A lot of the environmental movement today to try to everything to keep the carbon in the ground to boycotting banks that are giving funds to the fossil fuel corporations, to many churches have some of their funds, people who get paid, their retirement or that kind of stuff, have their pension funds in 401ks. And so there's been an effort by a lot of those church communities to divest from fossil fuel corporations. So
yeah, especially the clergy, yes.
Yeah, it comes out. So it comes out in so many ways, and including now you see around issues of race and oppression in all of its forms, whether it's against people of color, women, sexual orientation, differently abled. You find people of faith, and look at right now Reverend Barber, who's leading the Poor People's Campaign to try to lift up issues of poverty and injustice and inequality, and how 1/10 of 1% of the richest people in this country. I mean, that is fundamentally and profoundly immoral. Have more money and more wealth than the bottom, like 80%. There's something fundamentally wrong in our society that goes beyond, as they try to acknowledge, goes beyond a single person, a single political party, a single law. It's something that requires a fundamental shift in our ethics, in our principles, because our policies are a reflection of our principles.
Yeah, so if you're wondering what you stumbled onto again, this is the Friday Evening Fireside Chat, and we're talking this evening with the National Outreach Director of Move to Amend, Mr. Greg Coleridge. And so, Greg, we have time for one more question. Time flies when you're having fun. Greg was kidding with me. He said, you have 3 to 4 hours, so we'll have to have Greg back. So talk to us about what you're doing with Move to Amend and what that is all about and what you are doing personally to bring about reform.
Move to Amend is an organization that got started when the Citizens United Supreme Court decision happened in 2010. People may be aware that is merely the latest in a long line of constitutional decisions that concretize or legitimize, legalize the notion two things. One, that political money in elections is equal to free speech. Money equals speech. Bizarre. Money's not speech. Money's property. If money is speech, then those who have the most money have the most speech. Not a real good definition of anything approaching real democracy. And second, we're trying to eliminate the notion, equally bizarre, that corporations are persons. Again, the Supreme Court in several dozen decisions going back all the way to the 1800s have equated corporations with Bill of Rights protections, First, Fourth, Fifth, 14th Amendment, 14th Amendment giving due process, equal protection of free black slaves. And that was applied to corporations, not to free black slaves. So what we're trying to do is have this constitutional amendment called the We the People Amendment to pass Congress. You can get more information, go to movetoamend.org. We have about 500,000 people that are part of this movement. To be part of that movement, go to movetoamend.org/motion and join us as we are working across the country. More than 705 communities across the country have passed a resolution either in their city council or through the ballot calling for this. And basically, we're just of the opinion that, Victor Hugo once said, what did he say? That nothing is more powerful than an idea whose time has come. And we think the whole idea of getting big money out of politics and that only human beings are people, not corporations, not money, people are people. And that is an idea whose time has come. And if we can get big money out of elections and get rid of corporate rule, which is ruling over, you name it, you fill in the blank, then we have an opportunity to maybe authentically, for the very first time, have authentic democracy, because we've never had it.
Greg Coleridge is with the, again, Move to Amend. If you go to movetoamend.org, you'll get more information about all the wonderful things that they are doing. Greg, thank you so very much. Thank you for being my friend over the years. Thank you that all the good stuff that you do out there. Just really, really appreciate you putting yourself on the line out there for, again,
well, great work
justice.
you're doing. I mean, just to get into the media the way you're doing, we have to take back the media. We have to democratize the media. The corporate entities have controlled it. And when you focus on a profit system as the way it is, I mean, it's doomed because you're just chasing the bucks.
Thank you so very much, Greg. Thank you very much for being. Again, if you'd like more information on the things that Greg is doing, again, if you go to movetoamend.org, you'll have more information about that. Diego's giving me the wrap-up sign, so just wanted to, again, thank everyone for being here this evening. Thank you, Greg, for giving us an education here on what we need to do also as individuals here. It's not only praying, it's not only thinking it, it's being it out in the world. So we just thank you so very much. Join us again next week, same bat time, same bat station, when we do it again here on the New Thought Media Network. This is Pastor Michael Mangus wishing you a wonderful week.
Thanks for joining us this evening for Friday's Fireside Chat with Pastor Michael Mangus. Join us again next week at 8 Eastern, 6 Mountain for more spiritual conversations for today. For more information and replays of past shows, please visit the New Thought Radio and Media Network's Facebook page. Until next week, may God bless you richly and abundantly.
Check it out. Thursdays, 10 a.m. Mountain Time, noon Eastern. A healthy dose of Jersey Girl wisdom. Live with Rev Jersey Girl. Sponsored by New Thought Media Network. Positively inspiring.